Always, the two speakers that we have lined up for you are again great stars in their own rights. They are past presidents of, Chirag is still the president, but Ajay has been the past president of TIE Rajasthan. Also, they are respectively founders and CEOs of their companies. Chirag's been part of many companies. He's been part of companies and organizations in London, UK. He still continues to work from across continents out of Bombay also and out of everywhere else. Ajay's always been this thing, but a first generation IT entrepreneur. Some 20 some years ago started Data Infosys, late 90s, sorry, 97 or 98. Totally mobilized when Rajasthan was not even on the radar of IT and tech, and went head on with ISP, internet service providers back then, and now has improvised into a company that's formidable in software, in you name it, on technology, and there it is. So they're both great. They both have worked with 5 team members, and they have worked with 5,000. So they are part of large corporates, they're heading large HR businesses. So they will go through the spectrum on HR, the topic that they have to handle. And they're both very talented, so they know how to manage themselves. Please conduct yourselves well, Chirag. Thank you.
And I just want to say one thing. I am inundated and scared talking to you guys. Yeah? I've never addressed so many women entrepreneurs in one shot. So my humble request is, I guarantee you this is going to be a life-changing session. I guarantee that. My humble request is switch your phones off, switch your laptops off, and just pay attention for 1 hour, and I'm sure something you will take, and you will reach our stages or beyond in your journey. So first, I just want to spend about a minute actually illustrating Ajay's career in a slightly better manner. He needs a broader introduction. His information is all over the public profile. But he is actually a second generation entrepreneur. He's a first generation oil entrepreneur and a second generation information technology entrepreneur. For the last 20 years, he himself and his family have been involved in what I call unsexy business, right? Unsexy, I underline that. And more often than not, and I've made that mistake in my life, we sometimes go for the glamour of the product, of the business model, and we forget the basic things. Let me give you an example of what Ajay has been doing for the last 20 years. He's taken one piece of this entire spectrum of information technology, which is communications, and he spent his entire life creating products and solutions around communication services. The reason why I speak the reason why I know about his business is that I have been working with him and I'm actually his customer. So, so you can see why I bring this point out. And I give you 2 or 3 examples of his innovation over the last 20 years. And the point I want you to understand here is that what has it got to do with HR? I'll elaborate that. What he's done, he's taken simple things like email. Emails were very complicated 30 years ago, 20 years ago. Now email is, we just use it ubiquitously. He's taken simple things like email and he's asked the question, is it ubiquitous? Is it all pervasive? Is it available to everybody? And the answer is no. 90% of the Indian population don't have access to email. And we all in this room should be very privileged, right? And we all interact amongst ourselves, but it's only 10%. 90% is vernacular, right? It's different languages. So his is the first company which has innovated vernacular, multilingual email proposition. Have a look at it, and you will find out what he's done over the last 5 years. Another example, today we are all working through video and video conferencing. He's been at it for the last 5 or 7 years. But once again, he's moved away from the sexy part of video communication like a Zoom, and he's created solutions for that majority of the people of India. So he is, in my opinion, an entrepreneur for Bharat, right? There's a lot of Bharat going on, right? So he's an entrepreneur for Bharat. And the reason why I say this is that in his journey, he is focused on two things. Can I solve a real problem? And can I create jobs? In his entire second innings with his family, first innings with his family business, and in his second innings in his IT business, he's created 2,000 jobs. These jobs didn't exist. He's created 2,000 jobs. So a round of applause for him, please. Now you may be wondering, why am I speaking and he is quiet? But I think the third characteristic of his is that he is humble enough to allow me to speak first, because he knows that he's got better things to say later. So I thank him for that. Thanks a lot, Ajay. Okay, some two, 3 points here. I know this is getting recorded. I really don't know why TIE Global or all these guys here chose us to speak on this topic. I don't know why, right? There may be two reasons for that. Maybe they didn't find enough good speakers. That's an option, that's a possibility. I think that's possible. Or maybe they thought that both of us are first job creators. Then we attract, second is attractors. We attract people. And the third is we retain people. And this is a very simple philosophy of creating jobs, attracting talent, and retaining them. Simple philosophy of life, okay? And whatever is the reason why we are here today, I just want to say one thing, that people, which is all-encompassing, HR, talent, payroll, whatever you want to call it, all-encompassing, is the only reason, only central reason for a startup success or failure. Do not listen to anybody else, no matter how gyani he is. Every startup across the globe succeeds or fails largely because of people, right? So it is such a binary thing, and this topic of HR is so wide and so deep, we are not competent to even discuss it. So what we are going to attempt to do is to give you our experience, because we have been in this position many years ago, right? And we understand, we sympathize, we empathize with where you are today. And also we've got a feedback that this was something you wanted to discuss with us today. So if you just take a back seat, and if you look around you, I don't mean particularly because of COVID, but generally, if you look at the last 50 years, and if you were to peel off the small companies and the startups aside, take them off, and if you look at what is remaining, the medium-sized businesses and the large businesses, if you see that, they were all startups at some point in their journey, but if you see them today, and if you look at their boards, there are two issues which a lot of people have observed and are trying to do something about it. One is poor representation of women. Yeah, there is public data now which says that there is poor representation of women. But if I'm seeing what I'm seeing here today through TIE's effort and all our effort, maybe in 25 years' time, we will solve that problem. We will see more women representation on boards. The second issue is that HR does not get, HR heads or HR function does not get addressed into a well-functioning board of large companies or mid-sized companies. Hopefully some of you will get to that stage as soon as possible. And the finance function is largely very influential and domineering in company boards. And I'm seeing that, by the way, in startups, particularly who are funded either through venture capital or eventually through private equity. So the question one has to ask is, why has finance why is it dominating HR when we've agreed on one rule that people is central to success or failure? And I think that's the issue is that if we don't believe, if you guys don't believe, irrespective of your gender, if you don't believe that people is central to my success, you will make the same mistakes of all these companies which are making currently. HR not being central to company strategy and therefore success or failure. So my recommendation through this podium to the TIE organization here and all our organizing committee is that our session should have started first. Don't you agree? As opposed to funding? Because funding can only happen if you have people, right? Do you agree with that? Yeah, your idea can be funded only if you have 5, 6 people, 10 people to take it for execution. So do you agree? Should we just put that recommendation that next time when we do sessions like this, HR should speak first? Do you agree with that? Okay. I'll just try to get a prime slot here. Anyway, thank you. Okay. But they're not here. I think they knew that I was going to be a bit critical on them. That's why they've all disappeared. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, as opposed to going through reams of information about HR and stuff like that, let's take some practical issues which you have. But before you discuss those practical issues, one has to understand that this is all people and psychology. And we must get certain fundamentals right. Because when you're managing a company or a startup, there are certain common things which you all need to be aware of. And we all intuitively are aware of, but sometimes we don't have a reference point. There is a problem, but we can't really have a reference to it, and therefore we don't know how to solve it. I'm hoping through this presentation, some 8 to 10 slides, it will create a reference point for you to start your journey in terms of building a company or a startup which is people-centric and not product-centric. Yeah, you agree with that? Okay, let's go. We were not told this when we started our journey. We didn't have this. We've all learned through experiences of our life, right? So can you please go with slide 1, if you can? Thank you. Thank you. Next slide. We've done that. Next slide. Thank you. Okay. What you see in front of you are 3 golden rules of running any company irrespective of size. Even if it's a 2-people company or a 10,000 people company, 2 golden rules, 3 golden rules, you have to make sure that this is embedded in your language, in your communication. And very, very often we forget this, right? How many of you are daughters of mothers? 100%? All of you are daughters of your mothers, right? How many of you are mothers? Please put your hands up. Vast majority are mothers. Vast majority of the audience here is mothers. As an individual and as a mother, are there 2 different things? As an individual, what you do, how you conduct yourself, what you do, and the moment you have the mother's tag, do you behave and function differently? Do you agree with that? Right? We all do, right? So what I'm trying to say is that when we conduct ourselves as mothers, or when we conduct ourselves as owners of our startups or for our companies, we have to conduct in a particular way, as how you would do as mothers and we as miserable fathers, by the way. We haven't done enough for our families, but anyway, we're learning at a late age. I can speak for myself, and I'm sure Ajay's wife would probably say the same thing. And I think COVID has actually helped us give that injection back to our family, so thank God for COVID. But have a look at this and take sort of 15 seconds to, and I'm happy to send these slides to you, that be very clear between what is the difference between a belief, because very often you will have employee issues or co-founder issues where the belief is lost in each other, right? And you have to keep reminding yourself that what is it that you believe in, yeah? Your idea or your project or your startup. If you believe in it, you will have people who will start believing in it. And you will have to keep on articulating it. And you have to be very clear that the conviction is not about whether it is right or wrong. It's about true and false. There's a difference. Okay, so think about these things when you are talking, setting up your discussions, etc. Value is something which is very emotional, right? And I'm sure a lot of you as mothers would know how to deal with that. But it is about good or bad. Let's give an example. A company which makes a lot of profits, is it a good company or a bad company? Well, we don't know, right? We need more information to say whether it's good or bad company. But a company which makes a lot of profits and wastes it on things which are frivolous, is it a good company or a bad company? It's generally a bad company. But a company which makes profits and does exactly what is opposite to what its shareholders expect, squanders it, first class travel, happens in a lot of startups. A lot of these young unicorns, potential unicorns, you have to see their lifestyle because they've got so much funding as well, and we wish we had some funding like that, but anyway. But according to me, for me and Ajay, it does not fit in our value system to squander somebody else's capital. So my value system has to be very clear that I don't want to squander somebody's capital. So when I hire people and build my team, they have to be like-minded. Do you agree? So your value systems have to be clear, whatever they are, whatever you as a mother, as an individual, as a family member has set your company about, that should transmit into your work environment as well. And you will be challenged on this more often than not as co-founders. Yeah? And we have been challenged on HR issues in the COVID times the most in our entire lives. Right? So we are coming from real experience. And then there is a concept called attitude. Attitude has got different meanings. Go for it. But you need to approve or disapprove something. And you need to, and that is attitude. What you approve and what you go for, or what you don't go for, is attitude. So these are some three fundamental things. If you ever get confused in your issue resolution with people or with yourself, remind yourself these three things as well. This is like your, holy scripture sometimes, yeah? We pray to God. This is how you should pray when you have people issues. Next slide, please. Ajay, you can intervene as I'm going along. Okay. Now, as a startup, and I know, how many of you have got more than 2 people in your startups? So most of you have got. You are still early stage, it seems. You are at an idea stage, okay. But eventually you will have. How many of you have got more than 10 people in your startups? Okay, quite a few. How many of you have got 50 people or more in your startup? Oh, we've got some. And should I go on? What's the limit? Where's the maximum? How many have you got? People, just people in your team. Simple head count. How much? 50 plus. Anybody above 100? Above 100, okay. You have above, oh, well done, okay. 120, okay. And so on and so forth as well. When you hired your first employee or your team member, how difficult was it? How difficult? On a scale of 1 to 10, when you hired your first employee in your startup, where you had to pay that person's salary from wherever you had the money, how difficult was it for you to attract that person to you? Scale of 1 to 10. Be honest. Sorry? Yeah. Yeah, so exactly. But that screening, that may be because you didn't find the right candidate. But I'm just saying, as a startup owner or as a CEO, founder of the company, was it easy to find the first? Okay, so let me rephrase this question. Very important how I rephrase it. Is it easy to hire the 100th employee than a first employee, relatively? Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? What is the link between that first and that 100th employee or 50th employee? Why do you think it is slightly easier? Forget about what you want. I'm asking about from an employee's perspective or somebody else joining you. We are saying it is difficult to hire initially, but when you get to 50, it gets relatively easy. Why? So you've built some credibility. You've built some credibility, right? You agree. You've got some product going, you've got some funding going, you've got something happening which is something which is going for you, and you're getting some traction as well. And this is where, at this point, most startup entrepreneurs, including myself, make the biggest mistakes. The biggest mistakes are made at that first 1 to 100. Policies are not clear, roadmap is not clear. Now, for example, Ajay is well known in our industry segment here in Rajasthan. Once again, another accolade for him, where there are people who started with him when he was an IT entrepreneur, nobody, trying to disrupt the large corporations of his time. And there are people who were nobody themselves who joined him, and they are all now sitting in senior positions in this organization. 20 years. It is not about loyalty. Loyalty is an outcome, is manifestation of what you do. Input is those three things: your belief, your values, and your attitude. That's the raw material Ajay put. He was not told by his dad or his mentor, take a little bit of attitude, take a little bit of, belief and a bit of value, and then suddenly you'll cook this nice meal and you'll be successful. It doesn't work like that. And nobody told us this. But what I'm saying is that when you look at histories of very good companies which are people-centric, you will find this common trait as well, right? Okay, so having established that, if you look at the chart which is behind me, at one end you will see, actually if you focus on the center of the chart, you see an individual. Let's look at now you as employers and employees sitting outside, right? Who are waiting to join your company. There may be a long queue or there may be no queue at all. But you are hiring somebody individual, as an individual. That individual has to work alone or perhaps in a team. Do you agree with that? If not today, maybe in the future, has to work in a team. That team is constituent of what? There could be multiple teams, right? In a 50 people company, whoever you have, you would have 2-3 teams, right? Working together. That team equals an organization, simple logic. And that organization operates in a, what we call society, and then we can say Earth, and then solar system and universe. We can go on, but I'm just kind of putting a limit till society. Now let's take a simple example of the reason I'm showing you this is that we make mistakes. Now let's say, take a simple example, need. We all need food to survive, correct? So as an individual, I need food for what? As an individual, my requirement or the need of food is what? So that I survive. Do you agree with that? For a team, that same need of food is what? How would the team classify it? Give it a shot. Food is required for the team to survive. But how would they manifest themselves if they are a team? Let us say food is in limited supply, and there's a team of 5 people. There's limited supply. It is not enough for all 5. What would the team do? How would the team respond? Simple question. As a mother, what would you do if you have 3 kids? You have limited food. Exactly. You share, right? That's how teams behave. That's why it's called a team. There is a reason why it's called a team. It's just not come from anywhere. Now, same requirement, food. How will an organization respond? It has got multiple teams. What if only one team is getting majority of the chunk of the food and the others are not? What happens in an organization? Mismatch. Do you agree with that? The policy, unfair treatment. All these manifestation of thoughts you as individuals would have faced in your lives at some point in the future, be it in our schools, colleges, or in our homes as well. Now, if you take it at the society level. How does society behave if it has got limited food? It has a lot more larger responsibility of food distribution so that every person gets food and no one goes hungry, right? Right? Now let's take it, deliberately I give you an example of food. Now let's think about pay, salary. Okay, let's do the same thing again. I want salary because I deserve it. I'm God's gift to mankind. I have come from IIT. Right? I have come from wherever I have, and I have this skill and this competency. I need salary. It's your duty to ask for salary, otherwise why would you work? Now, take it to the team level. The team members also need salary, but the team leader has a responsibility of making sure that there's some parity between the team members, right? Then you take it at an organization level. You have limited resources. You have to set your policies so that it is unfair. It is not unfair to some of the others. So you have to set up certain systems in place. I'm just giving you a very obvious example. We fail in doing this when we are thinking at this stage. And then at an organizational level, Imagine what if you hear in the newspaper that Mr. So-and-so CEO of so-and-so company is getting 15 crores of salary. And I am an individual working in that company and slog my butts out in that company for whatever reason, and I'm getting 5 lakh rupees of salary, right? Do you think there is a thought in that individual's mind about unfairness? Do you think or not? So at an organizational level and at a society level, people have started what you call is this big fat pays. I don't know if you see, there are big fat pay commissions at least happening in the developed worlds, and it is coming in India very quickly, where we are all subject to scrutiny about our own compensation. In our companies, we disclose that information. My salary is known to my peon, right? And I tell him that if you want my salary, you take my chair and you operate as a CEO. I'm happy to work as a peon for 6 months' time. Boss, no tension at all, you know? And if you do that, that's how you start thinking. So once again, the point I'm trying to say is that we often make mistakes in our thinking when we're building our policies, right? So every layer has got different needs and their expectations vary, you know, and it's an obvious example. Let's go, next slide, please. Now there's one guru, there are lots of gurus in life. He's one of the gurus. There are lots, no, there are millions of gurus. And in the HR topic, my gosh, the number of gurus are there, we can't keep up. Yeah? But this guy, Mr. Herzberg, has made a profound impact to me in my life on the basis of this very two simple concept he's put in life. And I'm telling you, I can go on and on about this, but I want to do justice to Ajay. So have a look at his material, his seminal research he's done over the last 40, 50 years. There's a very simple logic he's got. That when people come to you for a job, or you go out there looking for people and building a team, do not ignore what you call as motivators or hygiene factors. Okay, do not ignore them. They play out all the time. So let's look at, I've listed them down. So factors which lead to job satisfaction. What keeps me waking up in the morning, driving 15 kilometers in that goddamn traffic, not now, but initially, and I keep going to work because I need to work, because I have family to feed, but I need to be satisfied with what I do, okay? And that satisfaction will only happen if there is a response mechanism from you as startup co-founders, owners, blah, 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 as well. Yeah, does it make sense? I don't need to explain this. Does this, I mean, this list is endless, but does it make sense? If that guy is not appreciated, you know, whoever it is, right? You have to find ways to put systems in place when you are small and young that this happens. Yeah, and I don't mean, you know, going out of the way to do this, but make sure. A lot of co-founders I've met who do not use the word thank you. I've spent 20 years of my life in the UK, where if somebody beats me also, I'll have to say thank you. Whereas I've spent many years in the Asian subcontinent, we forget to use the word thank you because it is granted in our culture that we don't have to say thank you. But shukriya as a word in Hindi has been designed for a particular reason. Can you just start saying thank you? Ask yourself this honest question when you go to sleep tonight, and when you go back tomorrow in your own work environment, how many times you're saying thank you in a day? Just figure it out yourself. So this thank you comes from this dimension. And then when you look at this is another very highly incurred mistake by a lot of companies, and I'm not talking big companies, I'm talking startups, where they think, I have a policy, the pay is blah, blah, blah. You know, the work environment is whatever. There is a status, I've given you a VP title, I've given you a general manager title. Oh, this title business is also quite funny, yeah? You have to be very careful about this title business. Okay, so this status, this security, if you don't give, that guy's not going to turn up to work. So for him or her to turn up to work and work with you, this is the bare minimum. Hence it's called a hygiene factor. And I think this is a great way of just making sure that you don't say, Arey, Baba, I'm paying you. No, you don't know how difficult it is me It is for me to pay you salary. Yeah, I'm not getting money from my customers. My funding has stopped, but yet I'm paying you my salary. You don't understand my problem. But that person's problem is that I joined you because you will pay me, right? So it's a hygiene factor. If you don't pay him, dissatisfaction increases as well. And if you will find, I have found, I don't know Ajay in your case, but in my case, in my 3 startups I've worked with, 4 occasions have come where I could not pay salary. And we were multiple, hundreds of people as well. And that's where you have to make sure that you rely on these things. Because if you've done this well, what I'm trying to say is if you've done this well, and if issues happen here, you'll be able to cope with it. You agree with that? Yeah.
It's just a coincidence.
Yeah.
While me and Vanita is, by the way, our HR head in our company. We run around 900 people. And I was asking her, is it not true that every employee we have could get another job at a higher salary? And she said yes. It is scarce, right? That every employee has an opportunity for a higher salary somewhere in the market. And virtually, if I look at my people, then I find myself that this is true. Then how come somebody at a salary level is not thinking to take that additional profit and still continue to work in that company who is paying less than the market can pay him? That's what Chirag is saying. This is actually morning today, while I was coming, I talked to her. Exactly the same thing.
And you will find it, if not today, you'll find it tomorrow, this issue. This pay, business, staff issues. People, business, you find issues morning to evening. Attendance issues also you'll find. Don't forget about anything else, right? You have to be prepared. Somebody needs to prepare you. And that somebody in this case is you. You have to prepare yourself, right? And no amount of me telling you or giving you materials, it has to all come within. It's very experiential. This is a very, very experiential thing. There are references, but you have to figure out how you want to do it as well. So thanks, Ajay, for a great example. But I just want to, once again, dissatisfaction and satisfaction, yeah, has got an amazing impact on performance as well. Next slide, please. Yes, please. It's not my slide, by the way. It's this dude's. Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah.
Who's been paid good, whose job is secured, the work environment is fine, given all the options of work from home, et cetera, and all of that. And he's been recognized for the work that has been done, and he's been given optimum responsibility, not overloaded, not under, under work and all that. So everything has been done. In spite of it, there is no sense of responsibility from the employee side, as in, it's taken for granted. So how do you deal with that situation?
So once again, okay, I'll give you a very, very crazy example for you to, I'll give you 2 crazy examples because this situation, there's no standard answer for this. There's no standard answer for this. It is all very contextual to that employee's circumstances, and there are a couple of slides which will talk about that. But I just want, the way you have to philosophize about this, if you open your palm, how many fingers do you have? You have 5, hopefully, right? Are they of the same length? They're not of the same length, right? Think about your employees like that not all of them are going to be equal to what you want them to be, because that is just life, right? And the second thing you also need to understand is that as much as the fears which you have, they have too. So sometimes as a smart entrepreneur, you need to play on the fears as opposed to only on the security as well, okay? So if you have to take certain decisions, so for example, in my startup, after making a lot of mistakes in 2015, I came up with a simple policy and I made it public to my 500 people, and that policy was borrowed from somewhere else. It was not my own, but it worked for me. Hire slow and fire fast. Why hire slow? Why hire slow? Please figure out fit. All the lovely things we talk about, interview, yes sir, yes ma'am, and then when they join, we have all sorts of issues. Figure it out. We're going to do a mock interview session, hopefully you'll be able to figure that out, right? And you are going to make mistakes. 5 fingers, right? 20% of your workforce at any given time, once you reach this 50, 100 people, will be suboptimal in some point of time. If you recognize it and do something about it, you'll be able to deal with it. But if you can't solve the problem, fire them. Be ruthless, because your investors who are going to pay money in you are not some charitable organizations, right? You have to create profits and give shareholder value. I'm hoping that's what all of you are here. And provided you have the option. So sometimes it's all a trade-off. Life in your house, I will ask you, you're a mother, right? How many kids have you got? And one of them is naughty than the other one. Always the case, right? In my case, I was like that, right? But my parents didn't throw me out, you know? So it's just like that, manifesting daily, and it can really overwhelm you. Therefore, you need some reference points in order to cope with it. There's a very crazy saying in the English language, every dog has his day. At some point, if that employee is taking you for granted, you will find a way to deal with it. But take your priorities. What you don't want to do is go and troubleshoot something which could wait for another 2 days, and deal with your big files today and deal with this issue later. But don't create a bad apple in your team as well. So team building also, I'll come to that also, okay? But it's good. Yes, please.
Can I add?
So there are many ways to respond to it.
Yeah, so
Go
no,
ahead.
what you said is perfectly all right. So there are some things which are compromisable, there are some things which are non-compromisable in the organization. I always write them, keep them in my mind, and see these are non-compromisable, and that I reach to the fire. Before that, I don't reach to the fire of the policy, because ultimately you have people, the new people, you do not know what you are getting, right? But let us say the person is there in the organization, then how do I reach to the more appropriate terms and the right result? I have always find communication is the way.
Yeah.
Only way which works is the communication. And let me give you an example on this. You take bath every day. Do you take bath only one day and do not take bath 29 days? Is it possible? Can you brush 8 hours a day and do not brush for a whole year? Can you exercise only one day and do not exercise for 65 days? Meaning thereby, if you communicate with an employee only once in a month, to motivate him or guide him is not going to work. You need persistent communication. You need a continuous stream of motivation. Just paying him 1 month appreciation or a salary or him a good position is not going to survive him for a year. You cannot take away that I have given him a position, I have given him a certificate, and now it's all done from my side for the year. No. And this is a normal mistake entrepreneurs do. Just like you do not have illness does not mean you are healthy. It is exactly like that. Just because the employee is there and you are expecting him to work throughout the day as a motivated person, not necessary.
Not possible.
We have to continuously stream. So our role as a leader is not just to sign the checks and look at the sales, look at the purchase, but to retain and motivate people continuously and train them continuously. This is the main role leaders have, to create leaders, not to really lead. Those who are able to create leaders within their company by motivating, guiding, these problems will go away to a large extent. Of course, non-compromisable things you must know when you are to fire. So if somebody is cheating, somebody is destroying, somebody is not following the value system, somebody is not adhering to the policies, all those things are non-compromisable to me. So they are, doesn't matter who's the guy, you just get rid of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that brings to the next slide, Ajay. Thank you for that. And I think hopefully you'll start appreciating from a communication, but more communication and also knowing that person. This knowing business also we are not often very good at. But let's take this example here. or this is not example, this is my mental framework, to say is that let us assume that an individual is motivated. Let us assume. I don't know what is that level of motivation, but let us assume for timing that he or she is reasonably motivated. That motivated individual is going to do what? Is going to produce the work which he or she is supposed to do. Whether you have told him or whether the teams told him or whatever is the case, he or she will produce that work. And in return, what does that individual want? Salary. Right? You agree with that? This is a common transaction which happens between you and your team members. Without this, unless you are a charitable organization, without this it won't work. And somebody may say I'm worth $100, somebody may say I'm worth $500, somebody may say I'm worth 50,000 rupees. That's all the negotiations happen. We also have a very important HR lady over here. She deals with this on a day-to-day basis, even while going to sleep, on negotiating salary. That is a session by itself. We can't cover it today, right? Negotiation on salary is a very important skill as well. And you don't negotiate the salary to ruin or ruin the employee. You negotiate is because you have budgets. Yeah, you can't just suddenly give salary to everything. And this also will vary. So if you look, so if there is a reasonably motivated pay, this circle will go on, but it breaks down. This is not sustainable. It may work on a Monday morning, but by Friday it may break down. And you may think, what the hell? I've spent so much time looking for this candidate, knowing blah, 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 whatever, it's all broken down. Very often, what we don't know is what we don't know, right? The hidden thing about that employee. It is important for you, particularly at the startup stage, and I know both the ladies are very busy using their phones, so please respect our time. It is very important that you know what is it that is motivating them at an individual level. I'm giving you an example. You may buy a house, bachche ki shadi karani hai. There could be various 100 things, right, which that guy wants. That is why he's coming to work, and that is why he's doing your work, and that is why if you are motivated well, he will achieve his vision in life, which is to buy a house. You get it? Do you get it? How many of you have been employees for somebody else? All of you, right? And does this sound familiar to you, or what you used to do as employees? Does this sound familiar to you, right? Do you think that your motivation level was constant all the time? No, right? It varied, right? It varied. And depending on that, this also varied, right? I've had my first appraisal, and I thought I was God's gift to mankind. And my general manager in the UK, he sat me down, and the way he screwed me, I'm using that bad word, the way he screwed me, I am so grateful to what he did in my first appraisal. Otherwise, I would have been one arrogant SOB. That first appraisal, everything got clear in life, right? Swanky degree, you know what I'm talking about, right? All suit and everything, everything went flat in that first appraisal. The reason for that, I think, is that he knew what my ultimate motivation was, or why I had taken that job. And he did me a favor. And actually, when I left that company, and when I joined somebody else, I was actually headhunted or poached, which is not very good, but I was headhunted. And when I was headhunted, I needed a reference letter, right? Because it is a diligence thing, which was those days in the UK. It is there even now here in India. And I went to him with a big smile on my face after 3 years. And he wrote me a reference letter. I have framed it. I have framed it. Because his reference letter meant my life changed. He had changed it in my first year. I quit the company 3.5 years later. But that reference letter is framed for me. He knew what I wanted. And you know what he knew about me? And you know what he said in the reference letter? This man will become a CEO one day. You understand? You understand where I'm coming from? He knew what was driving me. Not pay. I was hungry for power, position, right? I had my own insecurities in my life. whatever is my context. I'm not going to talk about my troubles in life. Yeah, I've had many troubles in life, but he knew my insecurities. He knew what was motivating me, right? He was seeing my behavior. And by the way, I think I was the 1,500 or 1,600 employee of that organization. But that was the level of the detail of my general manager, right? It's an impossible thing to do, but you will do it, I do it, he does it every day. Nobody tells us, it just happens, you know, with years and years of experience. You get the message, right? This is a very important reference point. So when you are hiring somebody, when you're getting a co-founder, when you're working together in a project team, please try and spend some time in understanding what is it that's actually driving them. That's the message. Next slide, please. Now, CV, how many of you have seen CVs? Tell me how many of you have seen more than 25 CVs in your life, biodatas? 25, more than 25 in your life. Okay, and is it pleasure to read somebody else's CV? Yeah? Does it tell you anything? Does the CV tell you anything? Vanita, what do you think? Does it tell you anything? It's just factual, copy paste, somebody's English. We all know that, right? It never tells. Can we distinguish a genuine candidate from a fraudulent candidate through a CV? We never can. Okay? And yet, organizations and startups make this mistake even today. It's ingrained in us. Yeah, the process is just because you have a hiring agency, sir, CV, all that nonsense happens as well. But so how do you overcome that issue, right? It's a practical problem you'll all face, right? How do you overcome that issue? Just pause and ask yourself what the hell is going on here, and then you say is that okay, as an organization, if I don't understand the skill of the individual, if that individual skill is not applied in my startup, what are the consequences? Bad consequences. Do you agree? If Ajay has very good, let us say, computing skills, he's a great coder, right? His track record demonstrates that he's been doing great coding work as well. And I hire him as the CEO of the company. What's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Right? I have not applied his skills. But if I hire him as the CEO of a coding company, which is just 5 people, and he and his coders are left in some forest and doing their coding stuff, do you think he'll be successful? He'll be successful, right? Whose job it is to do this? His or yours? It's our job, right? When we hire people, not theirs, because they're telling you this is my CV. Right? You're making that decision, not them. They're selling, you are buying. You have to make that decision. Okay, you get the logic, right? And imagine if you understand that individual, whether in the first interview or whether maybe after he or she has joined, and if you understand, you will be able to convert those skills into competency. You understand the difference? I may have a skill of coding, but I'll be competent enough if I make the app which sells. You see the difference, right? So that's competency. It's all right, I may be a great coder, but nothing happens, right? I may be great at identifying loos, and I have great scanning mechanisms as skills built and my great network built, but if nobody uses the loo, then you're incompetent in terms of dealing with the problems or the solutions. You see what I'm trying to say? So that's the difference between skills and competency. And if you understand the competency, you'll be able to do these 2 things: excellence, impact, whatever you want to call it as well. Remember this is just a reference point, that please spend time understanding the skill so that you can convert that skill into competency. You have to nurture that team member. Absolutely, you should give the opportunity to upgrade. Then it is the employee's prerogative and not yours. As long as you are doing as per your systems, So once again, 5 fingers concept, then you have to figure out what you need to do to either exit that employee or try and do something else as well. We all have this employee issue as well. But because, maybe it is a fresh dilemma for you currently, that's why it's at the top of your mind. By the time you are another 10 years, you'll deal with this on a daily basis. exactly. But you will. It's all evolution, right? So you have to figure out, once again, go to your reference point. If your value systems are affected, if your beliefs, core beliefs are not aligned to your employee, right, and the attitude of that employee is not well, then you have to take a decision, not him or her, right? That's what you need to do. Huh? And you may make a mistake. So be it. You have to pay for your mistake. All our funeral only. Nobody is going to come and rescue us. Who told you to do startups? Did anyone tell you to do startups? I didn't tell you to do startups. You pay for your own mistakes, right? That's the way you should think about it. Okay. Next slide. But do this 3 M's. I don't mean mating like, that kind of mating. I mean mates as friends, yeah? So mapping, matching, and mating. Think about that. But so let me just articulate that 1 second, sorry. If you map the CV properly, map the CV or that candidate properly, match to the role and the responsibility what he or she needs to do, and then mate him with a team member or yourself so that he or she prospers, you're sorted. You've done your bit. Rest, leave it to whatever else. Okay, next slide. I hope this is not theoretical. I hope this is experiential and practical. I hope this is going in the right direction for you guys. You have a question?
The question around mating, mating and making friends, right? Like, so there is a small company. We would try to be very, very close friends in the pods that they are working. Now, one way that in which I feel it's in the past backfired for us is if any one of those people leave for whatever reason.
Yeah. Herd.
Pura
herd jata.
पूरा
Yes.
team जाता है.
Yeah.
So, like they might stick around because everything else is positive, but like how do you then deal with that? And, or
Yes.
you just accept
So
that?
once again, Ajay, I think answered that question. That look at it from an objective perspective. That why did that person leave in the first place? You have to do that root cause analysis.
Yeah.
Why has that person left? What Ajay is saying that he's surprised after 20 years, and I'm thinking, why is he surprised? But why is he surprised? That there are so many people who are working in his company who would essentially get more money elsewhere, but they're yet working for him. He is doing his karma. You have to do your karma. Okay, that's the way you have to look at it. So if that employee or your team member, because you have engineered this mating mechanism, what do you want to call it, and as a result finds another opportunity and takes all of them, it is better that it happens to you at this stage than it happens at the growth stage. Count yourself lucky. Count yourself extremely lucky, because how can you rely on a team which is not going to sustainably deliver what you have promised to your shareholders?
Sure. So
Yeah.
this is.
So it's a
not-
philosophical answer.
Huh.
There's no right or wrong.
So I'm not talking about the team leaving together to another company. I'm saying one person left because of whatever reason, family left.
And the others leave as well.
So the others, like because they've been a big chunk of their happiness of working in the company comes because of the people they were working
So you have to step in, your value
Yeah.
systems, you have to, if you are, say for example, at my level, if I'm the CEO of the company and this happens, I have to step down. I have to make that effort and go in the canteen or go to that restaurant and spend time with them and make them feel comfortable. Yeah, there is a concept of affinity, right? Why do we respect our elders or our peers? Because there's a concept of affinity. So give something back and make them, what you have to do immediately is to arrest the vacuum. That person leaving has created disruption in the group as well. Have you ever fallen in love with somebody? It's like that, right? It happens, shit happens. Yeah? But you as a leader have to remember that that's my priority. Step in and as Ajay said, communicate. Listen, this person's go from this, be honest, communicate, do whatever your value systems you, and hopefully you will have that problem. There's no guarantees in life.
I can slightly add a little bit here. The way I will approach this problem would be to do an exit interview with him.
Yeah.
And maybe let him talk in front of the entire team members, convince him to talk and why he's going. Good opportunity, and also talk about good for the company he is working on right now and motivate people to continue working there. Do not follow If it's a small team, you can very easily do. In my life also, there are incidences like this. It is not. But I blame to the break in communication.
It's all,
The moment a leader breaks the communication, so you imagine that you yourself feel sometime, and you can do mistakes, right? As Chirag has been repeating this word many times. The moment an employee has better trust on his manager rather than the CEO and the leader of the company, then you have lost that connect,
yeah.
right? Because he follows his directions and believes him to follow the herd rather than what you have been preaching. So basically, your act and words have not matched somewhere. Of course, you can't talk to, I have 900 people in the team, I can't talk to all 900 people. Maybe in a whole year, I can't talk to the last person. The situation was completely different when we were 10 people. Throughout the night, we were eating pizzas, getting lunch, having coffee together in the same room. One room was enough for the company. And I have that time. But today, it is not possible. Somebody is in Bihar, somebody is in Chandigarh, somebody is there. You can't just meet them. And the struggles are completely different. When you have an event, you can't even invite them, right? Everybody cannot come. 900 people is a huge cost to make them travel and invite. So you can't, there are different challenges. So communicate gets broken. But we have to find the ways, and I think I have given a golden word of communication. I think if you can take that word, how do you plan a strategy to communicate to the team? So we have devised the way. Let me tell you 2-3 ways, and then Chirag will continue. One is we have created our own instant messenger like WhatsApp. WhatsApp से काम नहीं चलता है because you have a privacy issue, mobile numbers चले जाते हैं, women working, everybody keep exchanging whatever. So we created a moderated group where everybody is in one structure. So the company's information flows to them constantly. An award, a success, a story, a happy birthday, an anniversary, people feel the last person is also remain connected. That's one which we have created. Second is holding the virtual communication event. This we learned during COVID. That how do we, these tools were there before, but you will all agree we never use them to communicate and do not travel at least once. I was traveling throughout the country at least 100 times a year. It was madness. And you are speaking in Delhi for 15 minutes, but your day is gone, right? So now this has become such a learning for all of us, for having a communication, celebrating virtual Diwali. We never thought that we could involve people sitting in all over Rajasthan can attend our Diwali puja. Now people feel connected. So I think we have to start having a better communication. And I have been thinking this and trying to improve much and more and more and more. And I think the more you communicate with people, the better they will build trust on you. And sharing success stories and troubles both in a way they can appreciate is very important. And Chirag, what has told is a golden words. Many golden words are there. If somebody is paying attention, these are not just English words. They are golden words to be followed when you are in an organization. Very, very important things which he has said.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chirag.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, communication, connectedness, these are all the challenges you have to overcome yourself. Yeah, it's like, you know, when I was growing up, my mom used to say, 24, get married, right? But she used to over-communicate, and I got fed up and I got married. That's the honest truth. But she succeeded. She succeeded in her single mission of making sure this vagabond son of mine gets married at 24, otherwise he's going to create a lot of problems for me in the future, right? So she succeeded, but I'm just giving you a rhetorical example that's how you will have to lead, and as I said, shit happens. You have to deal with it. Okay. This is another paradox or a dilemma you will face, and it's obvious what is written over there. Okay, ignore these fancy charts. I was doing some time pass yesterday while I was making this, but the top is there. That you may think that if my staff members or my team members are satisfied, she just gave that example, right? Excuse me, ma'am. You here. Yeah, you may think that your staff member is satisfied. You may think he is satisfied. Therefore, performance. Very low correlation. There's bodies of research which has happened, very low correlation. At best, there will be good attendance, timekeeping, making sure they're disciplined, all that's best. But performance and satisfaction, there's bodies of research done, just look it up. If you don't believe me, there's no correlation. But look at the next thing. But if that employee is dissatisfied, performance is down. Right? That is, so what do you do? What do you do, right? You have to first ensure that they're not dissatisfied. Even if you have done that, it's a great achievement, put a pat on your back. Okay? Because at least you have something going on for you. And then you figure out other tools for driving performance, and don't think on that Herzberg's right-hand side hygiene factors. I'm paying therefore satisfied and therefore perform. It doesn't work like that. We're all individuals, we're all humans at the end of the day, and you can't, sort of bucketize everyone in one go. Next slide, please. And sorry, just go ahead. And when you actually do and the reason why I use the word job design, so when you actually think about the role, responsibility, what he or she is going to do, any reasonable employee who's going to join and says, ma'am, mera kaam kya hai? What do I have to do? When you design that, think it through. Very often, we also do cut, copy, paste. Either say HR, udhar se udhar, dal ke, get the interview done. I've made mistakes like that because we are short of time, whatever are our reasons as well. But that's why I'm saying hire slow. Think on the job and the design. Think about where your company needs to be, what it needs to do today, and then you design that job description as well. Like all of us were distinct human beings, our jobs are also distinct as well. There's no one standard job. Yeah, you agree with that, Manita? Even in HR, 10 HR will have different views. Forget about anything else. They themselves will have different views on best practices for managing people. HR professionals, yeah? So think about job design. Next. This is organization design. Now I'm going from individual to organization, right? Because you are obviously running an organization, even if it's a 5-member, 10-member, 50-member PM. What you will find, this is once again, Ajay, this is all my experience, and you know some of my team members as well. And my team, just to give you some context of this experience, a lot of my hires, when I did my startup, had all come from the C world. What's the C world? C apostrophe. C, corporate world. This corporate is a bad word as far as I'm concerned, right? I'm from the corporate sector. It means jack shit, okay? It doesn't mean anything. Yeah, don't fall for that trap. I am from the corporate sector. Right? We don't understand what is the meaning of corporate sector. But anyway, I had people who were professionals, senior executives from all over the globe. They were working for myself. And these were the common traits which I observed in my first few years. Common traits. These are the common traits in our conversation with my HR head and the staff members. Pay first, yeah? Role first. What is my grade compared to him? Very important for me, yeah? Title, I was title, in corporate world even I was very title this thing as well. I fought with my seniors on my title because my title is my right. That's what I thought. Yeah? Even I've been here, by the way. Yeah? And future, please give me assurance whether your company is going to survive for the next 6 months. If I ask you to do that, will you be able to give that assurance? How are you going to give that assurance to your team members? Will you be there in 6 months' time? You hope, right? That's not a right answer. What you have to say, 95% of the startups fail. My attempt is not to fail. Same answer. Same answer. भाई आपको जो मतलब निकालना है वो निकालो. Startup है, it may fail, you know. But you will get this question, future, what will happen to my future? And when you look at, and I've met some of Ajay's team members, and Ajay's also met some of my team members as well. And both of us, he may call it slightly differently, I may call it slightly differently. What's the milestone? Where do we need to get to? We're all coming together. What's the direction? Where do we need to get to? Can we talk about that first? Yes, now you're kicking, right? With the staff member, you're kicking because you and I are now aligned as well. Okay, to get to that point, I need to focus. I need to get some things done right now. Do you agree? Yeah? I have to plot something. I need to do something right now. Then the camaraderie, this whole team, you know, let's get that team working for us. It's okay if I have a underperforming team member. It's okay, but I will sort of work together with that. Resolve first and fast, I should add. If there's an issue, resolve it straight away. Don't let it linger the next day. Resolve it, whoever it is, your team member, you, exceptional traits are this. Resolve the issue straight away and let it not come into our way for the milestone. And initiate first. Pehle aap. A lot of things happen. Pehle aap. If he is not doing it, why should I do? This happens even now. You go and check your own startups, it may be happening, you may not know as well. Why should I do as well? So, but you will find exceptional traits. And this is what you have to aim for. You will not get this, you'll start with this. I'm sorry, you can't start with this. You'll start with this and you'll probably end up there. And then when you look at your response, if you have people like this, my advice to you, if you have people like this, if you've done your mapping, and if you have people before them, just tell them what they have to do. No ambiguity. Don't be ashamed of what you expect. Tell them what you have to do. Don't ask, tell them. And when you have people of this trait, create a situation where they'll tell them themselves. You don't have to tell anything. You delegate, Baba, tum team, great stuff. You know where you're going. Tell me if you need any help. I'll come and nudge you and I'll support you. The reason why he is able to speak for a conference for one day, for 15 minutes and waste his time, as he's honestly admitted, is because he's reached this stage. His work is happening. 2,000 people are working. People are doing their jobs because he's created an environment where he is delegated. Vanita, hopefully I'm right about your boss here. Yeah? But he couldn't have wasted his 15 minutes one day for that 15 minutes if he was here. Need to tell leader is what? Constantly on the top, no? Like that our school teacher. What have you done? Homework done, this done, that done. Is that kind of a behavior. And a leader who delegates is step back. At your stage, you have to figure out you have to do both. You just have to figure out when and how. Yeah, you get it? Right? Practical skills. Next slide, please. Almost there.
So Chirag, let me give an example.
Yeah,
on
please.
this.
Go ahead.
So
I was hoping you do.
So there is a person in my company, many persons like this, and including Vanita is on HR, including Nitin, who joined, who was the first employee, first year employee in 1999 when I started my company. In 1999, we were 10 of us. He joined as a marketing trainee, and we used to sell internet connections at that time. We were the first company in Rajasthan to bring in internet, and he is now director in the company. We started as an internet, and it was my 100% time job throughout the year. And I can confess, and Vanita, you will think, I don't spend an hour in a year on internet.
Yeah.
That's the stage we are at. 100% is including the pricing to the customer, to the sales, to the growth. Entire story is driven by Nitin, who is the director in the company now, director sales. So what he is saying is that if you do not build those leaders in the company, then obviously you are not free. You are constantly, and it will not grow naturally.
Yeah. So and absolutely, and that not growing, fortunately we are in so much rhythm today is unbelievable, but this has never happened in the past. Actually, we've never spoken together, but not grow means scaling up. And if you look at what I had just presented earlier, need to tell leaders response and need to delegate, but there's a big piece in the middle. And the big piece in the middle is, how do I remove barriers to scaling up? I have to start thinking today, not after you've raised your money. You have to envision yourself that, boss, I have started this startup. I have only two choices, either to succeed or to fail. It's a great noble intention that you guys may have, that, wow, this is what I'm going to do and it's going to transform this life and it's going to do like this. Execution is which will exhaust you, right? And if you have to succeed, you have to overcome this, what I call this, the dirty, messy piece of execution. And you have to deal with it today, not after 5 years or 2 years or after 6 months. You'll be dead by then, okay? I'm sounding fatalistic, but I'm just giving you some, guided responses here, because most people make mistakes. But just think about it, right? When we talk about it, let's just see what Ajay just said. When you have do the mapping, if the traits of the people, just go on the previous slide, please. If the traits of the people is the common traits, use the need to tell side of the things. And if the traits of the people are on the right hand side, do the delegating side of things. That's the key point I'm making. And that a little bit more practical example, this is the task, do this. Yeah, not rudely, but do this. Yeah, I do this very rudely sometimes. Uninformed. When I'm asking you to do something, I'm uninformed about your situation context. There are times where I've told somebody to do something and I said, I expect this in the evening at 6 o'clock, but that person has got some issue at home, right? I'm uninformed. But when I'm in the telling mode, I have to, even if I know that I've made a mistake, you have to somehow, when your mother fires you, she doesn't want to fire you. My mother used to slap me when I was under 18, not after that. So till that time, I bet she used to go and cry or weep in her room because she didn't like doing that. But she still had to do it in order for me to straighten up, right? It's the same thing I'm bringing here in, and by the way, my mother never slapped me, it was just a joke. Anyway, uninformed on all issues, silos. When you're scaling up, as Ajay said, start resolving differences, allow opinions to form, even if they're varying opinions. If somebody has a point of view, don't quash it. Allow it to happen. Create an environment for these opinions to get formed as well. Then you get to a participant, and these are all my words I've used, right? Participation is all collective responsibility. If we fail, marenge to saath, that kind of Hindi dialogue. And if we survive, we'll all be very wealthy. These are the ESOPs and we'll make money and go to Paris or all that nonsense. All of this happens here. And this is when you've reached what I call is nirvana of a startup. And this is where a lot of startup entrepreneurs like us have reached, but we have failed here. I'm talking about my own example, and COVID has taught me that I have failed, is because I became complacent. I became complacent in my organization because I thought everything is working beautifully fine. I had to make sure that I keep on doing this in order for my startup to succeed. Fortunately, COVID happened, and we were able to deal with it. If COVID would have not happened, I don't know what would have happened to us. So COVID is the best thing which has happened to us. But I just want to give you what your traits have to be. So in other words, if you say, ma'am, I am like this today, and till I die, I'll be like this today, your startup will die the next day. Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make. You have to keep on changing as you hire people. Next slide, please. This is a slightly heavy slide. I don't know why I made this, but some homework for you guys, we'll send it to you. But the point I want to make here is that in the issues you will face, framework, reference point here, in the issues you will face with your people, broadly they'll be like these. Ma'am, your guy, is this the right description for him? Aaram se baitha hai. Comfort zone, nothing is happening to him. Okay? Very possible. Right? High procrastination, simple English, indecisive. Just keep on things and never comes up with any solution. Leader is like that and the employee is like that. It happens both sides as well. Lack of ownership, once again her example. He doesn't take the own initiative. Happens. These are the issues you're going to face. I'm telling you the issues you're going to face. Fear of saying no. I am telling you to do this, but because he is my subordinate, he cannot overcome his fear, and he cannot tell me no, that sir, you are wrong. Disastrous for your company and your startup if your team member has the fear of no. And just imagine that you've moved so much in time, and if you have the fear of no, this is disastrous. This is like straight failure. Yeah? and the failures are much higher as you go up. Then able to say no. That fear of saying no changes to able to say no. It doesn't mean that he will say no all the time, but that's the shift of success. That's what I'm trying to say. If that guy starts saying no to you occasionally, it's a good thing. And it's happened to me many times, and by the way, particularly with female staff members of mine, where I only realized that there was so much of this going on, and I did not know what the issues were. But one of the, you know Richa, right? Richa, one day she said, "This is wrong, Chirag. We were fundraising. This is wrong, and you are completely out of your mind." And she walked out of the office. I raised $10 million after 3 months. $10 million of funding I raised after 3 months. And I thank her for her ability to say, "You're wrong," right? It was a fundamental issue on the way we were fundraising, and she helped me correct it as well. So, you know, I know I'm taking the compliment, but it is her and her trust in me and the company which got her to that position.
You made me thought one chord, which I used to follow to overcome this. I did not knew this term of fear of say no, but I don't know Vanitas had heard this presentation or not. Maybe she did. So in the initial years, I do not do it very often now. When I used to have a meeting, I had the meeting rules slide with my team. And I very clearly remember the meeting rules slide were having 3 points. A pink elephant, everybody is equal, and whatever we talk here is not considered as insubordination. That was my starting pitch before we get into the agenda. Always. And pink elephant was, has anybody seen pink elephant here? Anybody? Actually, it doesn't exist. The same thing is in the mind of the employees, things which do not exist in the company but is in their mind. So the analogy was of pink elephant. That you think that my boss is thinking that way, my increment will happen or not, whether this company will survive or not. Do not keep this in your mind. Bring it on the table. That was the analogy for pink elephant. Because it doesn't exist. It may not be just true, and it may be just building up in your mind. And the saying, say no, and actually it helped. And I can go back and think that we had a lot of hot discussions. Hot means real hot discussions. But when we left out, one more point was there in the meeting. When decision is reached, whether I agreed or they agreed, then everybody will follow with spirit. Not because the decision has been taken, I do not agree, then I will not follow the spirit. Then it is no decision. So this is another point which I had. So meeting rules while having the team discussion is extremely critical to break that barrier.
Yes, absolutely. But you also highlighted a very important point, is that we used to fight. We used to fight. I'm going to come to that. This is my next slide. It's, as I said, we are today, for some bizarre reason, we are in great harmony. And then just to finish this point is that empower, delegate, and your chances of success increases. If you don't get to this stage, your chances of failure increases. So in whose hand is success or failure? Whose hands? Ultimately. But it's the founder. Unfortunately, that is it is the sad reality of life. Even if you are a large organization, ultimately it is the founder, the CEO, the leaders. So there are sessions we do in TIE here in Rajasthan on leadership as well. That's a different area altogether. But if there is one main message, if you go back and keep applying, is that I am responsible for success and failure and nobody else. And therefore, what do I need to do is what this whole session was all about. Next slide, please. Some tips. How many of you you said more than 5 people? How many of you are more than 5 people? So most of you are. And how many of you have worked in teams together in the past? We all have, right? We may have played sports. we may, in our school, we may have been in some teams together, blah, blah, blah. We all understand what is a team. Do you think that without teams, organization can function? We've clarified that also, right? Individual, team, organization. Now, how does a team behave? So when this chap, his sources is a typo. There's a chap called Tuckman. In the 1960s, he did research across some 8 or 10 countries, and he observed, he did research over 10, 15 years. What a wonderful job, right? 10, 15 years doing this. Well, whoever was paying him, he was the luckiest guy. He did research, and he concluded very simple things, that we do not understand the concept of team working. Everybody is talking about team building. Have you heard this word called team building? A team building session, particularly if you worked in the corporate environment, every goddamn third week somebody say, HR fellows will say team building session. Arey Baba, what is this team building? You know, it's like, you know, it's overwhelming for everybody. But what he basically said is that we don't know how to build the teams is because we don't understand what goes in a team, what happens in a team environment. He had to provide tools to team leaders so that they understand what the hell is going on. Forget about the project or the product or the outcome of that. How do people behave in teams? Do you agree that if you, ma'am, if you are in a known environment of your team members, you will behave differently? And if you are in complete stranger, you will behave differently? Do you agree with that? I guarantee you, over a period of time, people like us who have gone through this, we behave the same both sides. You understand what I'm saying? We behave both sides because we become consistent, and therefore our environment becomes consistent. Yeah, we can't role play all the time and be one to many sort of thing. We have to be consistent in what we do. Now, if you understand, and I'll give you some examples, basically what he said, let me first start there, that team is built over time. Agreed? Team can't just happen like that, right? If you're in a new environment, like you said, I love you all, ma'am. I love you all, you said. I loved your ideas. I love you all. You're at this stage. You're at the forming stage. Because a lot of them you have met for the first time. Am I correct? And when you meet for the first time, what is your response? Usually? Nice. Yeah? Because our culture, our ethics, our elders have taught, don't be rude. Show the colors a bit later. Initially, thoda theek se behave karna. Particularly when I had an arranged marriage, and imagine what my mom used to tell me when I had to go and meet my prospective wife. Sara, theek se. Yeah, don't mess up. Yeah, family's reputation, all of that. So this is all forming stage. You agree with that? You agree? It's a forming stage. We all behave nicely, formally. We try to make an attempt to come together. We have been forced to come into this situation to come together because of a need of a project or because I'm starting a company, etc., etc. There are different triggers why we have come together. Do we make a choice? If you are the team, your co-founder of your company, and you have a 5-member working team, and if she was one of your employees, can she make a choice about who her other team members are? Can she make a choice? It's your choice, right? The team leader's choice. She doesn't know who these other guys are, right? First time. So therefore, we all respond in a particular way, and then we'll see, acha, iske kya weaknesses hai, and then we start attacking, right? After a while, as this team starts working, what happens? Knives come out. Do you agree with that? How many of you have had issues in your team where you have fought and stormed as well? Yeah? Be honest. Honesty, best policy. So you are saying you have never had issues with your team? Ma'am, you should get, all of you should get awards now. I'll tell TiE Global to give you awards. I don't mean fight in a sort of derogatory manner, but disagreements, cannot agree, can't work with these people anymore, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it could be, whatever, but I'm just saying that have you faced or you have observed your team members not working together? You know, they're all having an issue, right? This is what you call, that same team is going through what this fellow, Tuckman fellow said, that this is called the storming stage. The storming stage is where teams collapse. And if your startup is going through this cycle, and with your team members, you're in the storming stage, who has to be the most attentive? You, not the team. You have to be attentive here. Because if this goes south, you've gone south as well, right? Then you come inside. Yeah, good, you come inside, hello. Okay, boss, issues, let's resolve it, blah, blah, whatever you do, let's work it out, minutes of the meeting, HR people, large companies, HR people will get involved, and some all nonsense will happen, and eventually something will happen, and somebody will compromise. Somebody is going to compromise, and suddenly that compromise, apology ho gaya, sorry, whatever, you come to the next stage, which is norming stage. This is what Tuckman said is the most dangerous for a startup. This is more dangerous than this. You know why? Because this is slow death. You know why this is slow death? Is the voice of that other person is not getting heard in that team. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of Tuckman. You know the Apollo 11 disaster? Do you know that? I think we were all born, right, by that time? Yeah. You know the Apollo 11 disaster. They did research on that Apollo 11 disaster for about 11 or 12 years, and they found out that it was not a technical issue of why that spacecraft crashed. It was a way they managed the technical issue, because the team was at this stage, at the norming stage. Somebody compromised somewhere a safety standard. Because I was saying this is not safe, he was saying it is absolutely fine. We fought, somebody came, I'm just giving you an example, he fought, whatever happened, compromise ho gaya, he put the foot of his gas accelerator, he said chalne do. And that chalne do eventually led to the disaster. So this is more dangerous to your startup, and you don't know this, than that storming stage. That's the point I'm trying to make. Many examples we can give of this norming stage. And then comes the performing stage. What is performing stage? As Ajay said, they're all doing what they have to do, all working together, great stuff, great outcome, one project after the other. And Rajneesh gave an example of Apple. And he said that Apple's success, he said, is because they've built an ecosystem of services, right? Yesterday he said that. It's not so much the product, but because some of the products of Apple have not been successful, if you're paying attention, and some have, and therefore we resonate Apple as a very successful company because it's got great designers. No, I disagree with Rajneesh. Apple is a successful company compared to Nokia is because it has phenomenal team working environment. You get it? Only powerful teams produce great products and services. Right? Designers and engineers, if they can produce great products and services, to where the world would have gone, right? It's not less often the designers, but more often the team of designers and the other guys collaborate and make successful products.
Chirag, I can add in
Yes,
this
please go ahead.
on Apple only.
What happened? Yeah, yesterday you were not there. Rajneesh
I
gave
would
the
not-
example.
so, but I would
I'm
agree
not
with-
criticizing it.
I
I'm
would
just-
agree with you. And there is an article on Google. Do you know what silos means? Silos, you all know, right? A particular can where you put your weeds, it's covered from all over, right? Apple and Elon Musk both practiced one thing, and they both have written many articles, and there is a large article on Google. If you will search Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, silos, you will find that article. That article in nutshell says that it's a natural tendency to build silos in the company by teams. The marketing team would not like to talk to technical, and technical team would not like to talk to the customer care would not like to talk to the senior engineers, and so on and so forth. And once you have silos, it's a natural tendency. So remember that word, it's a natural tendency to build silos. It's not intentional, it's a natural thing to build. And Steve has said in one sentence, it's a leader's job to continuously fight it. It's a very important thing. And if I look at my experience and his words, and what just Chirag said, is if you attribute the success of Apple to one thing, that's one thing. to crack silos. Everybody, and I have experienced that. And let me share that experience in Apple in US, in California. I was with my friend and he ordered an Apple Watch for me. He's an employee there and he got some discount. I asked him and we ordered. So he got the order slip and we requested for pickup. I went for a pickup. By watch, in less than 3 minutes, I had an Apple Watch in my hand. And he just scanned the QR code from my phone. No, nothing has been, less than 3 minutes by watch. And the pride I saw in that person to serve me, I actually came back and talked to my team about it. The pride at that store guy, small guy, who is probably nobody in Apple, he has never met the Steves and his other team. But the culture of not having silos and the motivation flows from the top to the bottom in the same speed at the same quantity makes the company different. And as he rightly said, there are super products available. It's not the product which makes you successful or bad. I have seen in my last 10 years, superb startups with great products do not exist anymore because they could not crack those silos in the team. Thank you.
Absolutely. These are common pitfalls. So once again, when you're building teams, I think what Ajay and I are saying is that when you're building teams, think about this. Spend some time on this, take advice, whoever is your mentor. If you don't have a mentor, please get one. Even if it's your mom, get a mentor because you'll have a chance to talk to somebody. Talk to somebody. Common sense cannot be replaced by academics. Businesses and startups run on common sense. And some of your startups have had phenomenal stories you guys have. This is all commonsensical approach why you have given up what you were doing and doing your startups as well. So don't lose common sense in all of these things as well. So if you don't have a mentor, talk to somebody. And when you're thinking about these problems, talk to somebody. There's enough material available for you to sort of work on. Last point I want to make. Next slide, hopefully, is my last slide. The invisible glue. The invisible glue is the culture, right? Any family member, do you think your parents, whatever, go and out, put a stamp out there, my parivar's culture is this, do you think they go and say it? Culture cannot be touched or felt. It's intangible. It's how you act, you conduct, how you behave, how you interact, how you communicate, how you deal with issues, very important, how you deal with issues, how you resolve them. This all define. These are all patterns. The decisions which you make today, will all form a pattern over a period of time, and that will define the culture of your startup, right? And one of the key things which some of the startups have been doing, particularly in the technology sector, and I'm beginning to see a lot of it now in the healthcare sector, not because of COVID, before that, is that the co-founders realize that we have to create a buzz so that I get talent, right? So this attracting of talent, I have to create a buzz, to create a story. So whilst the PR machinery of these large companies is working all right, but they also have to put action on the ground, you know, right from hiring, recruitment, all the way through. But a lot of people say that I like working for this company because I like the culture, as if they've felt, you know what I'm saying? I like as if they can see culture, okay? They can read culture, right? It's you can't even feel it. But you know, that's what I mean. It's very difficult to put quantification. And if some guru says culture mapping aisa hota hai, don't listen to that bullshit. Right? It's all bullshit because he's trying to make a job out of himself. Culture cannot be quantified. As I said, ask yourself a commonsensical question. Can your family write a rule book on culture? You can't. You just can't, because it's ever changing, ever evolving. It's a pattern of things which you've done over a time. And you will feel it. You will get the aha moment. And as long as you will know you have a culture, when your company, your startup, your team, even if it is small, gets into that right side of that box, right? that excellence box as well. That's when you know that something's working, and that's intangible, and that's the culture as well. So it's just a philosophical note as well. Don't fall trap for this culture bullshit if you hear from anybody else. And I guess that's it, right? Mr. Rotkar, am I done? I hope you enjoyed the session. How much time?
There are 2-3 things in last 5 minutes I would like to give you out of my experience to such entrepreneurs. So one thing is, consider me at your level just 20 years before. So I have lived that journey. Where you are exactly, there's no difference. Probably consider yourself more luckier. I will tell you why. When I started, there was no internet. There was no mobile phone. There was no Google. There was no Gmail. There was no Uber. There was no Airbnb. There was no Oyo. There was no free hosting. And there were no freelancers and coders. In fact, there was no network administrator, no IT man when I started my company in Jaipur. Trained everybody from scratch and learned myself. There have been weeks where I have not gone home. Weeks, sleeping in the office, same clothes. You can see must be a bad smell will be also coming out of your body. But this was the situation. You're so passionate. I was 25 years of my age. You're so passionate, full-time available, trying to make a difference. I'm sure most of you will have the same kind of passion to make a difference. So one thing we must always remember is the purpose why you go to office. And money is the byproduct. Money will follow. Money cannot be the purpose. If you follow money, it doesn't happen. If you follow the purpose to make a difference in people's life, it happens. Second is, because it's the HR and talent thing, there are 3 important things with people. Talent, talent, and talent. There's nothing else. It covers the talent management. Talent management has 5 pillars to me. Attraction. How do you attract the person? As Chirag was saying, how difficult it is to get the right person as a first employee or the 100th employee. I see it, this changing. Sometimes you can attract a lot of people, but is it a right candidate? So 17 out of 1, 1 out of 17 kind of situation. We had a situation, we have 1 out of 100, 1 out of 50 many times. Still today after 20 years. It is very difficult to have the right match. Attraction is one. Second is develop him. Second pillar. Development of that person to fit in your culture, fit in your organization. He gave an example of a dating. I am giving an example of a marriage. It develops. We develop each other. 2 different individuals never saw each other with different traits, different families, different life, and you built together as one. That's the culture which we have to build. Then only it has a long-lasting together relationship. You will have a people living 20 years, and in marriage we survive life. Those who are not able to build that development of togetherness, then you cannot, and obviously the marriages break, and so as the relationships, if we do not develop. Third is the motivational part of it. How do we keep somebody motivated? Motivated not to work in the company, motivation to deliver, motivation to perform his duties, motivation to follow the values of the company, motivation to remain in a positive mind frame. That's the motivation we have to build in the employee. Fourth pillar is learning. In a technology sector, especially, if we do not learn, we are obsolete in a year. It's a very continuous in nature. It could be different in your companies, but in technology world, if we do not develop. So let me tell you how my lockdown started. And then I'm going to tell you the 5th one also. Lockdown started, this company, my company, has not seen even a single day lockdown. We were working continuously. Isn't it amazing? I have not sat at home even for a day in this entire period. So has my company. We found the opportunity and created an opportunity for ourselves to work from the lockdown started. So we worked with the government to create a e-pass system. How people will get passes to come out of their homes during lockdown. For medical regions, for emergency regions, for technical regions, for health issues, there can be thousands of issues. How do you deliver things? How does thermometer travels? How does medical person travels? How does a driver travel? And all those systems are created. We worked for almost 2 months, continuously 24/7. So actually, we were working 8 hours a day. We were working 24 hours a day during lockdown. Point is to make a difference. Point is not about how much money you will make. So if the team is motivated, so just imagine, and I don't think I took even a single session for my team to convince them to come in office during COVID. Rather, we had to fight hard for a lot of people to please stay at home. Isn't it amazing? I feel very lucky to have that kind of atmosphere that people are forcing to come to office rather than they want to stay at home. In this scared world where you may get infected, right? Why this is so? Because our HR has created that culture of security and take care of an employee when he comes to the office. So all the processes are followed. The idea was keeping him motivated and learning new things while the situation is not in your favor. So learn at that time, learn continuously. People, as I was listening, some people do not take opportunities. This happens. But probably the opportunity has been given not to the right person. So we have to see who are the continuous seekers, continuous learners who are interested to learn and grab new target, grab new opportunity, grab new thing. And this is very, very important to allow people to break their boundaries and move into the different zone. Fourth is retain. And I think this is the most critical component for the success of the company. If we do not have a continuous second layer working for you, it is going to be a nightmare for entrepreneur. You have to have people whom you can trust, you can delegate, and they can deliver results. And this can happen only when you have a continuous work together. So you understand even without talking. So let me give you an example. Vanita is, and I would request you to speak something, why you continue in this company for last 8 years, and what motivates you to, because this culture can every entrepreneur can learn from. And like, I will also like to learn why you are working there. And no, it is very important, right?
Exactly.
It has never happened. So,
We covered all of that.
generous agreement, generous increments. And by the way, Mahavir, increment you touched it. I have never done increments. This is another thing which I have done. I have never done increments. All the HODs decide their team increments, and they do the self-appraisal, and the increments automatically happen in the sheet. We have only analyzed whether something is exceptionally wrong or right. That's it. Nothing else. Lot of time, actually, I have increased the increment what HOD has given. And this time also. Lot of companies took the excuse because of COVID not to do increments. We did the entire increments, better than before. We did all the increments. And I think we have to deal with the empathy and compassion all the time. So I was on retaining people. If we have the people who are retained for long, sometimes they are expensive with time. Sometimes you might think, but lot of things have priceless value. And I consider 3 pillars there. One is trust, one is loyalty, one is relationship. These three pillars, I believe, makes you or breaks you everywhere. If we have that relationship with you, what culture he's talking is about relationship. If there is a relationship with the person who is working and we form a relationship, there is a difference I want to mention here between creating a contact and creating a relationship. When you create a contact, it is for a particular use. When you create a relationship, it is without any purpose. It's a relationship which you create. There is no usefulness, probably. You just know. कॉन्टैक्ट्स हम बनाते हैं, कभी ये डॉक्टर तो काम नहीं आ जाएगा, कभी ये वकील तो काम नहीं आ जाएगा, जरूरत पड़ेगी तो इससे बात कर लेंगे. दिस इज नॉट द रिलेशनशिप. You built a relationship when there is no use. And that is what works with team members a lot, which you built a relationship beyond the job, beyond their profession. What do you really know your HODs, how many children they have? Are they going through a trouble? Is there any family problem? Is there any equation correct at home? How much you go beyond their life, how much you know about them, I think makes a huge difference because you can appreciate and deal with him much more better. Vanita, she recently took all of us to Jhalana Safari. Jhalana Safari is not a big thing. Anybody can go, right? There is not an issue. You just go and see the leopard there. We had a mind-blowing experience of seeing a leopard. But what was most important, the feedback which I got myself is that this was the most difficult time in everybody's life. Not to have that entertainment, enjoyment, going out, meeting friends. This was not happening. In 6 months, suddenly a company's team come out with a plan to let's go all together and create a social distance, create the mask, and we all booked the entire evening for all of us and went there. These are such instances will create the relationship with him. It is beyond, it is not expected. It is not supposed to be done. Company bears the cost and you just take up. So it is very important, as Chirag said, keep the HR at the central because that's the heart. That is where the blood will flow everywhere. And if you have the person who can deal with that